This is a new Dr. Octagon record. I mean, I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't know what we're going to do with it in that respect. I think, you know, we're in a different age of record releasing. I had my own label through Universal for the last few years, and I left about 2 years ago because it's just, the format's not good for indie records, really, you know. No one's really figured out how to work them. So when you ask, yeah, the record exists, and yes, it's coming out. It's just maybe it's going to come out in the form of a lot of singles and a lot of like promo co-ties. I'm not really sure 100% yet, because the way the internet works now, especially, is like if you release an album, you get like, I don't know, this much of an imprint, digital imprint in the world, like for a week. If you release a single, you kind of get the same amount of imprint. So to release the whole album at the one time, which I would prefer to do, just doesn't give you as much impact as if you spread out some singles. So we're just figuring that part out a little bit. I'm figuring out what's the best way to go forward and have it come out. But for now, we're playing a lot of new materials, that we're on the road right now a little bit. We're doing some shows, and you get to hear the new stuff. And I'm pretty excited about it. It sounds great, and the shows have been working out pretty well, so it's good. The sonic difference between the first Dr. Octagon and this Dr. Octagon is really just time and experience. I mean, when I made the first Dr. Octagon record, I was thinking a lot about not giving a fuck. When I make this record, I'm thinking about not giving a fuck. And it's different reasons. The first time, it was because, like, you know, I'm doing stuff and people aren't really understanding what I'm doing. And I always had this feeling, like, not feeling, I had this thought, like, I'm going to do what I feel like doing. And either it's going to be, people are going to like it, or they're not going to understand it. But if they like it, I made what I wanted to make. So I did that, and Dr. Octagon was one of the first records that really put me out in the public, because it was unique in its own way, and it kind of put me on a path to allow me to do a lot of great records. Now, I've come back around again, where I'm just like, you know, I don't really like the state of music right now, partially because what's being made, partially because of the way labels work. I'm just going to do what I feel like doing. So in so many ways, it's the same attitude, but I think, you know, techniques have changed a little bit for me, and you know, I know what I want to get, maybe a little bit more solid in that respect, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, because the certain amount of naivety in the first record kind of worked really well too. But it's that change, basically. I'm probably better at the craft, but probably my original ideas the first time around were like trying to execute them and do something else also is a little bit of what made it an interesting record, and what I couldn't do well then too made it interesting. Kool Keith has been a great person to work with in a lot of ways. He beats to his own drum, he does his own thing, but what it is two things. One thing is, I should say this first, is when you get in the studio, he works really hard. He just goes and works hard. So he's where he might have a sort of a do his own thing kind of vibe. When it comes time to work, he really focuses and really works. I learned a lot about, I guess the words, in terms of rap, is he's more poetic, and he's more interested in playing with the different timings of music and beats than almost anyone else. So I learned how to like work with someone who, like, say you were doing a pop song, and every time people landed on the same moments every time, it kind of is what it is. When someone lands on different moments, you gotta learn how to work with it, and it pushes your ability to like spin on a dime or whatever, you know, and try different things and make it work. When we work, a song's either really good or it sucks. If it's not good, it just doesn't work. But if it does work, it does work. But you don't like micromanage it or do little things to it. You just kind of let it happen. Maybe like a bigger wholesale thing, like a hook or something. But like, you don't like, oh, change these 3 words or something. Like, you don't do that. So it's more of a stream of conscious working with someone who's like really tapping into something that like a lot of people don't tap into when they're more calculated, I guess is the word. When I make records, I don't really worry about the sophomore jinx. I was asked, you know, how I felt about the Dr. Octagon record coming out and how people react, and like, I kind of want to explain what I did with the Deltron record, because it kind of explains what happens with the Octagon record. And actually, for that matter, we could even go further and say the second Handsome Boy record. I mean, I've had a lot of sophomore records. I'm not really, you know, worried in that one way. And see, I've had this experience before, because like, you know, we released the second Deltron album after a lot of years of whatever. And when me and Del made it, we're like, you know, I'm not worried about whether people like it or not. I want them to like it, but we're going to make it as good as it can be. And so what that means is like, if you don't like it or you're not feeling it, we're not gonna feel bad because we did what we wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like we were at a stage where we can make what we wanted to make. And when we made the second Deltron record, a lot of people initially, because it's a pretty complex record, a lot of people initially were like, I don't know, I like the first record, whatever. And we're like, sure, whatever. It's your prerogative. But as time went on, I think people understood what we were doing that record, because it's just a hard, I don't want to say a hard listen, but there's a lot to comprehend if you really want to get into the Deltron thing. And I think in the Octagon way, Octagon's almost more madcap and fun, so it's almost not easier. I think Deltron, for example, with the hiatus and everything, it was like, when we came back, we wanted to make more of a overt political statement, whereas like Deltron Records is sort of fun and maybe a little bit of a commentary on society. This one's all a commentary on society. So we had a purpose, and that was also why it took a long time for that record to come out, because we had to figure out how to address that. But when I did it, when me and Del did it, sorry, not to go between the two, we felt this is the record we want to make. And like now, even a couple years later, I can stand by and go, this is the record I wanted to make. I wouldn't have changed anything on that record. I mean, you know, maybe technical details, but I mean, the actual songs and the actual whatever, that's what I wanted to make. That's what we wanted to make. Octagon, it's like revisiting the mind state and doing it just the way we want to do it. If you're to hear this record, you'll probably be like, it sounds like an Octagon record. You might go, oh, they didn't deviate as much or whatever, but it doesn't really matter to me because we took it where we wanted to take it. I'm not lacking for interest in myself, or what I'm creative interest to make it happen, I guess. I don't feel like we've had a lack of idea or like trying to crank something out, especially hadn't even done the record in so long. I mean, did a couple songs with him in between, Keith in between, but like, I feel like the record, if you hear it, it works for itself. I actually think in a lot of ways, it's always hard to say it better or worse, because the first record is unique and it gives a unique insight to something. So this is a continuation on some levels. So it's not as unique because there's a precursor. But where the record went and where it goes, I think it works out pretty well.